So we know that like when the Rona hit, there was a ton of talk about everyone wanting bigger and better, right? They wanted a house with a gym, house with an office, a pool, a media room, tennis court, basketball facility, hiking trails. Like they basically wanted a house with everything so that they could, whenever they quarantined, it was like just being in their own luxury area.
They just had their own retreat. Everything was there. They didn't have to leave because they couldn't leave, right?
Right. And that was the paradigm that I kind of operated through, just assuming that everyone was like that. Well, I was wrong.
Well, wait. We brought this up, remember, on the show, I don't know, a month ago or whatever, but we wondered, I wonder what's happening with tiny homes. Are those gone? Is that still a thing?
Yeah. We even talked about asking Christina M. Smallhorn because she sells a lot of tiny houses and mobile homes as well. And we talked about talking to her about those. Well, it turns out there's a boom. And the question that the article is asking is why? So there's been a huge boom in tiny housing, which that's a fun play on words anytime you get to do that. And if you've been watching people's Instagrams, you've probably been seeing a lot of tiny homes in their stories because that's become a popular share too. So anyway, there's a huge boom in tiny housing. Many ran to simplicity and away from bigger is better. However, some are using these tiny house structures as a second home. For instance, our good friend Tim Macy of the Tim Macy Show, he got a bus and he actually white boxed the bus. That's a throwback to a story from 3 years ago. Also, millennials are moving back home. And I'm wondering if this could be somewhat related to millennials moving back home and mom and dad saying, you know what, we've already converted your basement. Let's just get a little tiny home in the backyard.
Yeah.
But tiny homes are booming during COVID-19, primarily due to the creativity of home and business owners. This is Scott Nathanson. He's the executive vice president for IPX 1031. They're the company that actually did this study. He told Inman, people who run businesses out of their homes, ranging from therapists to dog groomers, are no longer comfortable having clients in their actual residences. Out of 2,000 Americans, IPX 1031 surveyed between November 1st and November 5th of this year, 56% said they would live in a tiny home, and 86% of the respondents who have never owned a tiny home said they would consider buying a tiny home as their first home. A tiny home is often a modest price tag between $30,000 and $60,000 and is likely more appealing in a post-apocalyptic world. Or maybe I guess we're pre-apocalyptic, aren't we?
We're still pre. We haven't apocalyptic yet.
Yeah, pre-apocalypse. So while 53% of the surveyed respondents said they could afford a starter home based on the average, which according to National Association of Realtors is $233,000, a whopping 79% of respondents said they could afford a tiny home. There's a huge difference in market affordability in these tiny homes and also how people are using them. And I think when that has been combined, you're seeing a huge swell in the sales. It's not just like whenever you read the headline, you're thinking, wow, everybody, instead of getting these big houses like we first thought, they're all just getting all these little tiny homes. That's not exactly accurate. There is a lot of tiny house sales, but some of them are second house sales.
Right. Well, and what if you could go buy some land somewhere for not too much and then buy a tiny house for 50 grand, throw it on there. Now you have everything you need. It's just not in the house. Your office is outside. Your gym is outside. Everything's outside. And, I don't know. I think it's brilliant. I'm always a big fan of, because what we have a lot here in California, and you guys have heard me gripe about it before, is I always just say it's house. They're literally 5 feet apart, just on top of each other. A 2,500 square foot home on a 3,200 square foot lot. That is ridiculous to me. That is insane. And it's just literally keeping humans in boxes. And then when you go outside, you're in another box. Like, how ridiculous is that? So I'd be a big fan of going smaller house, huge lot kind of thing.
Small house, huge lot. So there is some restrictions on that. So that's one of the things that I was considering doing too, is just getting a huge piece of land and then building a small house. But then I ran into these like restrictions based on the loan type, that if I got a certain type of loan, I had to build a certain size house based on the land. So if you're curious about this, it is. If you're curious, so like
ridiculous.
Yeah, I found a 10-acre parcel of land, and they're like, yeah, totally, you could buy that. You'd have to build a $450,000 house. I'm like, that's not a tiny home. So
I'm not doing that. No.
So what you could do though is survey off a small portion of that land and then put your tiny house on that small portion of that land,
and
then
then put the
you're good
rest
to go.
of it in an agricultural loan. Make it there's certain restrictions towards a certain amount of head of cattle, or if you put chickens, or if there are ways. I mean, so Limestone County, where I'm at in Alabama, is one of the largest agricultural counties in the Southeast. And so we have specific, and I'm sure in Arkansas it's the same, we have specific agricultural lending institutions that they specialize in lending on this type of thing. They'll even lend on the barn dominium concept, which is a similarly disruptive concept to what you're saying in tiny homes.
I love that. That's a great idea.
Well, I mean, you build a metal shop and then you put whatever you want in it. My wife is not sold on what they look like on the outside, so I got a long way to go there, but I'm trying.
Hey, baby steps, baby steps.
That's right. Can I ask you a question? I'm sorry, I'm going to be the distraction of the show. Did you say Tim Macy hotboxed his van?
White box.
Oh, different. I was like, was he in California too, or what? Good gracious!
So Tim is a real estate agent in San Antonio, and they bought a school bus. And we did a story like 3 years ago that talked about white boxing. And basically, these people were buying these luxury homes, and they were white boxing, which is they would take everything down in the luxury home. They would take everything down off the walls. They would remove walls, all this other stuff, and they would white box it. So all the beautiful designer colors, all the decor, all the furniture, they would just remove it all, paint it white. And it was like a clean canvas for the next luxury owner to come in and do whatever they wanted to that. Usually it was like apartments or condos in big cities like New York.
High rises and stuff, yeah.
Right. Well, Tim Macy happens to be a former boxer. And if you've never seen him, you'll know he's white. So it was a perfect segue for Tim Macy of the Tim Macy Show, #white boxing. Because at that same time, he came out with a video that was him like working out and doing boxing exercises and stuff like that. So we're giving him heck. So yes, Tim Macy of the Tim Macy Show, #white boxing, actually white boxed a bus that they bought in order to fix up the bus and then travel the United States in this bus.
Sounds a lot better than hot boxing. So. I was just concerned. I'm not going to lie to you. I was like, what kind of people am I talking to? No, I'm kidding. I'm totally joking.
Taylor said off-grid living. She was talking about Fayetteville at the time, but it totally relates to this story that we're talking about now. Howard Harold Broadsley says, I have dear friends that are seriously considered retiring and moving into a tiny home. Michael Elizabeth Brodell said it's a boom of tiny homes because renters and first-time home buyers can't afford the increase in traditional home prices. That could be true. Taylor goes on to say, I'm sure the restrictions of evictions have greatly impacted the stealing of people's homes by the big banks, which, by the way, is a huge problem. It's a devastating butterfly effect on the country. So the stopping of the eviction is the huge problem, or the foreclosing on people's properties is a huge problem.
Because the person got evicted. Yeah, which side?
And we've talked about this a couple of different ways. And one of the things that we've noted is due to the lack of foreclosed homes on the market, that is hurting the bottom 1/3 of the market who are looking for properties in order to buy. People can't find the properties, and so it's driving up the prices. However, if the foreclosure moratoriums were off, then there'd be a lot of people who, I mean, it was just kind of traditional. They need to foreclose on these homes just like they would have last year and the year before. So a large percentage of those homes would actually be on the market, easing some of the inventory in the lower 1/3. Pete Thorpe said, turning vans into tiny homes, traveling the country and blogging or doing arbitrage with Alibaba and Amazon, or drop shipping by mailing stuff they buy at Walmart on the cheap and letting Amazon fulfill it. Yeah, that's a great idea. I think I'm done with all this. Let's just do that.
Yeah, we can do the show from anywhere, buddy.
Just drop ship it. Jonathan said Fayetteville's encouraging smaller footprints or 600 square foot home going for a 160,000 popping up everywhere. Wow.
That's excellent.
Is that in California?
No, that is in Fayetteville, Arkansas.
The only jokes I have are California jokes. Unfortunately, I'm from Alabama and I'm not very cultured, so I only know how to make fun of one state. I'm kidding, but I do have another question that's absolutely not related because I'm the distraction. Did you say that you cannot say anything about the Rona?
Yeah, you can't say the C word.
Can
either C word.
Can you call it? Will China virus get us in trouble, or how does that work?
Probably not. I mean, so what we notice is just that whenever we said it or put it in the comments, or we put it in not the comments, but we put it in the description of the show, the amount of people that saw the show is way lower.
You know, I posted one yesterday that said it's Tuesday and it's sunny outside, and a thing popped up and said this post is missing some context.
This post is false. Yeah, if you post something like on a Monday, if you say it's Tuesday, I think you'll get the warning now.
Unbelievable. Unfreaking believable. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to distract too bad. Tiny houses here are something we've actually looked at as a business model because shipping containers are, so we have a cabinet shop and like we do construction, home construction, that type of stuff is where our business model is right now. And so we've looked at taking some of those vans or some like even shipping containers, bringing them in, putting them on. I mean, depends on if you want them with wheels or not, but there's a tremendous movement for, and they're not cheap and they are really cheap to build. And so I think you're going to see a whole crop of, because here's what's happening with all this movement, right? I don't know where in your market, but here, home construction, the home builders, the little guys are being squeezed out because we are growing so fast that all these big guys, the DR Hortons and the Mungos and they were just bought by
Dr. Horton.
All those guys, they're coming in. They're Dr. Horton's squeezing out the little guy, and so these guys are looking to pivot, and I think it would be a good pivot point is to pivot into that luxury tiny home market, and I just there's a tremendous need for it. You can ship them anywhere; they're freaking on wheels.
They said it in a day or two. But a big problem with these tiny homes is the banks still haven't pivoted. You know, I sold a house that was a metal building. We had to get a cash offer. We had like 10 offers. 9 of them were loans. And I would call the lender every time because they sent a pre-approval letter. And I said, look, here's the house. Look it up. Are they actually pre-approved for this specific home? And the lender would say, nah, not going to happen. So they wound up having to go cash. And until the lenders update that kind of stuff, no matter how low the mortgage rates are, which Dan's fixing to talk about, the major issue is going to be the money. You know, if they don't now for a down payment for some of these homes, you can build a tiny home. But until the banks loosen up the lending constraints on the non-traditional builds or unconventional builds, then I think you'll see the pop in the market. Because I think a lot more people would want these. A lot more people would want the shipping container home. But man, lending is kind of the bottleneck there.
Well, I'm waiting to see a luxury market right now.
I'm waiting to see what happens with, you know, what we've talked about on the show a couple of times is 3D printed homes. And how do you get a loan for that? And, you know, because it just sounds like the best idea. You just have it printed somewhere and a few panels are brought in, boom. Same with shipping container homes. We actually have a friend who did that and it came out amazing. You know, the things and that was 2 years ago, the things they're doing with these homes. But how do you get a loan for 3 shipping containers?
Yes.
You know, and then, you know, so I mean, it is tough, but like, why don't they pivot, especially in California? Make all the jokes you want, but you know, 300 plus days of sunshine a year kind of gets people here. But it is expensive to live here and own a home here. So, you know, and I get so many times I get people reaching out. I want to buy some land. I want to buy some land. And then we go find specific land and like, okay, well, you can't do what you want there, but over here you could. And I'm like, well, I don't want to live there. I want to live over there. You know, so I wish it would loosen up. I wish I could help more and more people because at the end of the day, if I can help someone buy a $20,000 to $50,000 plot, they can do whatever they want on it. That's amazing to me. I'm down.
Dan, could you reconnect your internet? Just click off and then click on it too, just to make sure. You're kind of breaking up a little bit. It's on a little bit of computer.
Well, and while he's doing that, one comment, you know, California is pretty quick to loosen their regulations, so that should happen pretty soon.
You would think that they would kind of be on the forefront. Dusty Martin says luxury tiny home. That's an oxymoron if I ever heard one. So there's someone living in the land of land. Yeah, if you're looking around and there's a lot of land in your area, then you're thinking like, why in the world build a tiny home? But it's super low maintenance, right? You don't have to do. There's nothing that you have to do to maintain the home. It's all a lot easier than maintaining a large home. So we're
looking at 22 acres right now to move to. I mean, the market's so hot that I've only owned my house. I've owned my house less than 2 years, and the equity in it's ridiculous. It's almost. I mean, it is 50% of the value of my house probably. And so it's been crazy. And so we're looking to capitalize on that and move to our forever home. And so I like hunting. I like being outside. We're looking at 22 acres and the options are buy a camper and live on that while you build a house, or put a tiny home on there for $40,000, $50,000 and have a really cool in-law suite. And when the parents come down because Lord
Just have a bunch of different in-law suites.
yeah, I don't want them. Never mind.
And that's called a compound, Dan.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, I know. I'm a huge fan of compounds.
They had one. They had one in Waco that didn't work out so well. I'm kind of scared of compounds.
Well, that's
Melissa
that's
Mara
the
says-
thing.
So this is a good point, actually. Melissa Mara says, I have a luxury tiny home. It's a condo.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good fair point. Fair point.
He does, yeah.
It's a little bit easier to get a loan for a condo than it is a tiny home.